Hoppa-doo-doo, shoppa-da-boo, JB the fool. So this is super random, fam. I'm just, hopping on here, going live on the old Lost Boyevsky channel. I haven't uploaded anything here in years or something, but shout out to any fans of my music who happen to be on this channel and may watch this video at any point. Basically, I'm just kind of testing something out. I'm getting curious about possibilities of just streaming larger parts of uh, my life, my activities, what I do, what I'm up to, thinking about possibilities of just, yeah, I don't know, streaming weird stuff, random stuff, streaming silly stuff, comedy, entertainment, making more spontaneous videos. And yeah, I'm just kind of in an experimental mood. So I was thinking about just leaving this live stream going for a while I just maybe just lay down, play some block blast on my iPad. Yeah, I mean, I could stream playing that on my computer, but the setup for that is more complicated than I want to figure out right now. So probably do that another day. So I think I might just stream the boring view of me just laying down, playing a game, and listening to whatever I listen to while I do that. Y'all probably won't really be able to hear what I'm listening to very well. So probably nobody's going to watch this stream because it's going to be, if I do that, it's going to be pretty boring, but it's just kind of a silly experiment, hard to say much more about it than that right now. I'm just starting to like open up into possibilities of new ways of expressing myself online. I've been creating stuff online for eons now. Feel like a OG internet creator in many ways, and just kind of curious about new possibilities. So this is just part of that process, and I'm getting interested in streaming more. And I just wanted to hit press go and just stream anything to kind of like break the seal on getting things moving a little bit here. But I, again, don't really have much energy for, as I was saying, don't have much energy for much right now. So yeah, since I don't have energy for much right now, I think I might just, yeah, literally let this go while I just lay on that bed over there for a little bit and just like play some Block Blast and listen to whatever I listen to on the old on the old on the old YouTubes. So yeah. Hopefully I'll get a better setup going soon so that I could at least be like playing some tunes or anything really. Yeah, I think I'll be figuring that out soon. But again, this is just kind of an experiment. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do a ton with this Lost Boyevsky channel in particular. I might create new channels, but yeah, anywho, peace and love to everybody. Peace and love. Oh, oh yeah.
Postgraduate certificate of education. I was waiting to hear from publishers. I already had my agent. Just before I started teacher training, I got my agent. So all that year, I was on tenterhooks, whether it happened or not. And at that point, my realistic ambition was teach part-time, write part-time, which would have been a great life. I like teaching. My ultimate dream, obviously, was to be able to write full-time, but I knew how few children's writers managed to make a living wage out of it, so I wasn't under any illusions.
So have you started the second project?
Yeah, but it was going pretty slowly, because by this time, I'm studying full-time, I'm still the writing time was pretty thin. Everything turned around. Grant from the Scottish Arts Council, which I think was the highest grant they'd ever give. It was £8,000, which to me at that time was a fortune. And that was purely so that I could afford to take only part-time teaching work, and I could afford to finish book 2. And then shortly after I got that grant, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was sold to America for an amount that I had was way outside my wildest dreams, and then that was it. I could afford to give up teaching completely. So, which was a very scary feeling and completely paralysed me, because when I got a phone call, first of all, I got a phone call saying there's an auction going on in New York, and my immediate reaction was to laugh hysterically, because I couldn't. This was so beyond my ken. And then an hour later, I got a phone call saying, telling me that Scholastic had won the auction, and for a 6-figure amount. And instead of feeling, as you would have thought, expected, wildly happy, I felt utter terror, because I'd nearly finished book 2 at this point, and suddenly I couldn't write. I just thought, the stakes had been up so much. I thought book 2 was now going to be a horrible letdown to everyone, and every word had to be worth a certain amount of dollars. And I found it very scary. And give up teaching completely. So, which is a very scary. So that I could afford to take only part-time teaching work, and I could afford to finish book 2. And then shortly after I got that grant, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was sold to America for an amount that I had was way outside my wildest dreams, and then that was it. I could afford to give up teaching completely. So, which is a very scary feeling and completely paralysed me, because when I got first of all, I got a phone call saying there's an auction going on in New York, and my immediate reaction was to laugh hysterically, because I couldn't. This was so beyond my ken. And then an hour later, I got a phone call saying, telling me that Scholastic had won the auction, and for a six-figure amount, and instead of feeling, as you would have thought, expected, wildly happy, I felt utter terror, because I'd nearly finished book 2 at this point, and suddenly I couldn't write. I just thought, you know, the stakes had been up so much. I thought book 2 was now going to be a horrible letdown to everyone, and every word had to be worth a certain amount of dollars. And I found it very scary.
Whereas the expectations just grown.
Yeah, absolutely. From being absolutely, totally obscure, where I was really quite happy, and just writing purely for me, suddenly I felt as though about 100 people were looking over my shoulder every time I set pen to paper, and it was a very weird experience. I'm not being ungrateful. I couldn't be happier now, but that's because I've now finished book 2 and I'm happy with it. But for a month or so, I just felt terrified.
Did you know when you were writing book 2 that Harry Potter would continue?
Yeah, I'd always, almost from the start, I'd envisaged it as a 7-book series, which would see him through wizard school and then he'd be a fully qualified wizard at the end of it. That's the sort of big story, how he qualifies a wizard, you see. And there's another bigger plot that's going on that I can't really talk about because it will ruin it for people who will read all the books. But so yeah, all of them were plotted in quite a lot of detail already, which obviously made it easier in a way. It wasn't as though I had to go back and sit down and think, like, what's the next book about? I already knew. So
the 7-book cycle as a story is written in your head.
Oh yeah, bits of all of the books bar 5. 5 is still the sketchiest of the lot. So if people are waiting longer for 5 than any of the others, that's why. You heard it here first. But yeah, I've bits of all of the other books except 5 are written already, and the final chapter of book 7 is written for my own satisfaction. So it constantly reminds me what I'm aiming for.
So the end is written?
Yeah, the very, very end of it is written.
Bauvermögen auf mit Trading 212, dein deutscher Broker.
No, I'm fine. I've still got enough. Continuity.
I'll just ask that again.
Okay.
So the end of book 7 is written already?
Yeah, it's written, the whole chapter, which is just because it's for my own satisfaction. It reminds me where I'm going. But so many children now have expressed so much interest in it that I kind of feel like it should be under lock and key. You know, it feels quite valuable. It's already written. So, and that chapter deals with what happens to the survivors after they finish school. Because when Harry leaves school, that's it. I'm not writing about it anymore, and that's going to be horrendous. That's going to feel like bereavement. Because by the time I write book 7, I would have been writing about it for 12 or 13 years. But I have to let go at some point, and that will be it.
But you haven't committed to Harry Potter for at least 5 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Which I'm perfectly happy about because I love writing those books. I really love it. And yes, that's all I have to say. I'm sorry. And
The change in terms of like me, to see that change.
yeah.
Let's do it chronologically. The smartest growth.
Yeah. That happened after the smartest. I won the smartest prize about a month after I sold the American rights. That was the big change in my life, generally in my day-to-day life, because after that people journalists specifically became interested in me, and before that they had no reason at all to be interested in me. So that was a steep learning curve, I think they call it. That was a bit scary for a while.
Well, actually getting the smartest.
The smartest was amazing. You probably know that's voted for entirely by children, and winning that was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It really was. Because partly because I felt that a lot of the publicity focused on the fact that I was a single mother and I had written in cafes, and that's perfectly true and it's interesting. I can see why that's a good story. But winning the smartest meant that, oh, by the way, the book might be all right as well. So that meant quite a lot to me.
Just give me some examples of what kids have said to you. I mean, the first time a kid came up to you and said, "You know Harry Potter, do you?"
Yeah. First of all, they always ask me, where do you get your ideas from? And the honest answer is obviously that I don't know. They just come, but that's so boring. So I try and think of ideas I've had that I can see a sort of reason. And they asked me about Quidditch a lot, why I called it that, and where I got the rules from. And they're interested in the words, the made-up words. They want to know why I call non-magic people muggles very often because they like the word, they think it's funny. And that comes from mugs, obviously.
Do you remember anything individual childhood mistakes?
Oh, I've been loads of different things. I got the rules from, and they're interested in the words, the made-up words. They want to know why I call non-magic people muggles very often because they like the word, they think it's funny. And that comes from mugs, obviously.
Do you remember anything individual childhood mistakes?
I call non-magic people muggles very often because they like the word, they think it's funny. And that comes from mugs, obviously.
Do you remember anything individual childhood mistakes?
Oh, there have been loads of different things. My favourite one was actually not something someone said. It was a girl who wrote to me after I'd been to visit her school. She wrote me a letter saying, "Oh, well, you were very nice to us. You were very, very interesting. But you really should brush your hair." I liked that one quite a lot. And I get letters from little girls who send me their photos and say, "Can they play Hermione in the film?" And I have to write back and say, "There is no film. And if there is a film, I won't be casting it. Sorry. But thank you for your photo, which was lovely." Boys, sometimes I get the feeling that boys have been prodded into writing because their mothers are so amazed they've read a book. Go on, write to her. Boys tend to write about how many times they've read the book. They're so proud of themselves that they've kept reading it. And often I feel vindicated in that it's a long book. The main problem publishers prior to Bloomsbury had with the book was that it's too long for a 9-year-old. But I get a surprising amount of letters from kids saying, "I'm glad it's that long," because most books that I like finish too soon, which is heartening. You know, we hear so much about kids aren't reading, and plainly they still are.
But in writing, did you think that I'm writing for 9 to 12 year olds?
No. In fact, until Bloomsbury told me I was writing for 9-year-olds, I didn't know who I was writing for. That's the truth. Except for occasionally avoiding a polysyllable where a perfectly good monosyllable would do. I never stopped to think about it. I write what I enjoy reading, truthfully. And I was quite interested to see what a publisher would think. It was the appropriate age band because I didn't really know.
But do you feel like that, or do you feel like you're
Well, I do feel I'm writing for everybody because I'm sure that if someone else had written the books, I would enjoy writing them, and I'm 33 next week, so I hope I'm writing for everyone. I've had a surprising number of letters from adults who unashamedly, they don't say, "Oh, I bought it for my daughter," they just say, "Oh, I picked it up and I really enjoyed it." And the best one was a 60-year-old woman who wants to join the Harry Potter fan club. I like that one a lot.
But you don't say that one, John?
Yeah, with no excuse, like this is my grandchildren, just I want to join it. That's brilliant.
Do you feel protected about the book? I mean, that seems like by the time this goes out, comments of people who have gone, the expectations that they can state, do you feel protected?
Yeah, I think you do. And the only control you have, really, as a writer, as an author, is that there has been quite a lot of interest. There have been different television and film companies have expressed an interest. The only control you have is to sign a contract with someone you truly believe will make, the right film. But after that, it is out of your control. So yes, I feel anxious about it and I feel nervous about it. And I will only sign a contract when I really believe that's the case. But it is a leap of faith, always, obviously.
It's devil's advocate question. If it goes to America, it gives some like DreamWorks or Disney.
Mm-hmm.
The chances are Harry Potter won't be the film.
Can't really say anything there, but it's not going to be DreamWorks. Or Disney, as a matter of fact. Can we not put that on there? Because I'm not really supposed to say that at my age. It would shoot me. He would shoot me. But yeah, I'd rather keep it. I want Harry to be British. I will fight as hard as I can for him to be British. If he's not British, it won't be for want of trying. I suppose at the last resort, I will have to pick it at the cinema. And what can I do?
How far have you got? I mean, have you just finished the different book?
Yeah, just finished book 3. So which was the most complicated plot yet. So I'm still, my head's still crammed with it. It's quite difficult to promote book 2 when your head is full of book 3, and this will continue until book 7, obviously, when I'll probably feel as well as feeling really sad, the sense of liberation that finally I can talk about anything without giving things away.
What's book 3 called?
Book 3 is called Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which will mean nothing to you unless you read book 2. Once you've read book 2, I'm not trying to sell more books, I'm just telling you, just telling it like it is, meaningless unless you've read 2.
The plot is that much more complicated.
Yeah, I think it's probably, in a way, I hope it's the most complicated plot of the lot, but sometimes you can't tell until you get halfway through. I really enjoyed writing it for that reason, but any more complicated and my head will explode, so I think that was probably the most complicated of all of them.
How hard work is it? I mean, it's not hard work at all.
Well, in some ways, it's not hard work at all because it's the thing I love most of all. And it's a dream to wake up in the morning and think, what am I doing today? I'm writing and I'm getting paid for it. You know, this is the dream of my life. But I make it hard work for myself. I rewrite endlessly. Sometimes, you know, I don't know about everyone, but I spend an entire day staring at a piece of paper and you come away with 3 lines of writing. Other days, you know, I can write 2,000 words, 3,000 words and be happy with most of it. Probably the most difficult part of it is you never can tell when inspiration is going to strike. So,
Do you write on the computer?
no, I still write longhand. It's partly superstitious, I think. It worked for me twice, writing everything out in longhand and then typing it up, so I don't want to break any formula.
When you wrote that first book, going to be a teacher's training book, did you have any idea? I mean, what was your highest expectation?
My highest expectation, well, not expectations, my most far-fetched dream was a kind review in a decent newspaper and the idea that I would be able to maybe teach part-time and write part-time. And I thought that to me it seemed like this huge hurdle even getting published, which indeed it is. It's not that easy. So I didn't really look much past that. So everything that's happened since has been well beyond my wildest expectations. It really has. I still sometimes can't quite believe it's happened.
Are you worried that Harry Potter's taking over everything? It will become too much?
If it becomes too much for me, that will probably be my fault. I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to me who I speak to and what I do with Harry. And I don't think I will become sick of him. Other people might, but I can't, there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It seems like a chance here this becomes a character that may well last in a way.
I hope so.
You know, the William has or Tintin has or
Du bist selbstständig. Aber was ist mit deinen Finanzen? Die können schnell kompliziert werden. Das weiß ich aus eigener Erfahrung. Rechnungen schreiben, deine Steuern machen und deine Banksachen erledigen. Das musst du alles im Griff haben. Mit Accountable Banking geht das jetzt alles in deiner App. Dein Geschäftskonto wird automatisch Geld für deine Steuern zurücklegen, damit du dich auf dein Business konzentrieren kannst. Alle Geschäftsausgaben, die ich hier beim Tanken, kommen automatisch in deine Buchhaltung. Du willst Geld abheben? Kein Problem. Natürlich kannst du überall kostenlos abheben. Genau.
That would be my highest ambition. My highest ambition would be that long after everyone's forgotten that I was a single mother and that I was poor and that I wrote in cafes, people are still reading about Harry Potter. That's my highest ambition. I'm unashamed in wanting as many people as possible to read the books. I always wanted Harry to be wildly famous because that to me was a mark that loads of people had enjoyed the book. I never expected, and this is the simple truth, I never expected me to be in any way famous. So that was a bit startling. I kind of wanted to be famous in the sense that you might one day hand over your credit card and someone saying, "Oh my God, didn't you write Harry Potter?" But not in the sense that your picture would be in the papers. So that was a bit disorientating. Yeah, and that's fine by me. That, you know, I want Harry Potter's name to live.
Well, your name on the books remain the same before Christian.
Yeah, it's a bit late, I think, to change JK now. I don't mind JK. I quite like it. But when I think if the publishers had known, obviously, if they'd had a crystal ball, they wouldn't have bothered because it became apparent so very quickly that I was a woman that really it was a bit of a pointless exercise.
Since I filmed it, I'm really, collecting what you got there. you
I got, yeah, commended. I got commended. Yeah. I'd like it to say highly, but it didn't. But I was very happy with commended. So.
But that's what I say. I mean, one lesson to be too curious. Getting these chairs and like the librarians and talk to the kids about the books that won. Say, look, we have to read these books about that Harry Potter, right?
I have to be careful what I say there, don't I?
Anything memorable about the Carnegie given that I didn't really say?
To be shortlisted for the Carnegie has a particular prestige. It was it's the one I think most people have heard of, and to be shortlisted was wonderful. Partly because one of my favourite books as a child, if not my favourite book as a child, which was The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goode, which is largely forgotten now, I think. I've had difficulty finding it in bookshops. Won the Carnegie in 1946, so to be shortlisted for it was very meaningful to me. Can't say much more.
We're almost done. You sort of answered this last bit again. Why do you think, well maybe quite much of it, why do you think kids and others like books?
I think that Harry is, I think in one way he's a hero in the best sense in that he has admirable qualities, more admirable qualities than I do. He's a nobler person than I am. At the same time, he is a human person, and when he's bullied or goes through any of the difficulties any school child goes through, he has normal human feelings of wanting to hit back and wanting to win and wanting to beat his adversaries. And I think he's quite a human person, even though he's a hero. And I think certainly his two best friends are recognisable in many people I've met. Some of the unpleasant characters too are very recognisable. I think I've met them several times over in my life. So possibly for that reason, it's very hard for me to say because I wrote something I enjoyed. That's why I wrote it. I never once, when I was writing Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, stopped to think about, will this appeal to that marketing group? I wrote it purely, the sole criteria was what I found scary, what I found funny, and characters that I liked. So, in a way, you were asking the wrong person.
But you knew you were writing for children.
Well, plainly, it was a story that I thought children would like. It took me 6 months or so to get into. At first, I tried too hard to write for children because I'd never tried to write anything for children before. And what came out of my pen was sickening. I kept reading it and thinking, right, that's patronising. That makes me want to vomit. That's just too sickly for words. And after 6 months, I gave up and I thought, okay, you're just going to write it for you. And every now and then I'd go back and, as I say, just delete the polysyllable and put in a nice syllable. Monosyllable, and that was it.
What was it like going on Blue Peter?
Lifetime's ambition fulfilled. That was. I was very nervous about it. In fact, I said no to. I was offered a few interviews on television prior to that, and I didn't want to go on because I found it nerve-wracking. But then Blue Peter, the perennial appeal of the Blue Peter badge, at last I got it. Yes! I was so proud of myself to have a Blue Peter badge, embarrassingly proud. In fact, I would have never to come through far more to get Blue Peter badge.
You still have it?
I still have it. I'm going to frame it. I know my daughter's not allowed to touch it. Is that brilliant?
Good luck.
Gibt es eine Statistik zur durchschnittlichen Betrachtungsdauer von Werbung mit verschiedenen Medien und was besonders wichtig?
Where are we at with the movie?
Actually, we're doing really well with the movie. It's quite kind of nice to find Harry though. After the birth of my daughter, the day I found out Bloomsbury had taken my book for publication was the happiest moment of my life.
You apparently earned 25 million quid last year.
Don't believe everything you read in the press. I'm not going to lie, I mean, by anyone's standards, and certainly by mine, I'm now rich. The single biggest change, and only people who have been extremely broke, I think, will really understand this. The single biggest change it makes in my life, I don't worry about money every day.
Well, that's that happy where, as you said, well, I makes you example every time.
That wasn't a Harry Potter then. I haven't seen it, obviously, but the live interview. Could you stand apart? No. Could you stand apart? Just while we'll move the camera. I said no, and I'm trying to move back towards him. He's moving away from me. Aidan.
Yeah, have you read this? You haven't read this book, have you?
No, I haven't time. But it's true what I said. Everyone I know who's read it says it's absolutely brilliant.
Slightly different interview, I suppose. Obviously you've done me before, but I'll start at the beginning. Significance of King's Cross
Yes.
for you.
Yes. Personal. I think by asking you the question. My parents met on a train going from King's Cross to Scotland. Yeah. I think I knew I wanted Harry to go by train, and so obviously if I was going to choose a London station, it was going to be King's Cross.
I had a disadvantage here because I didn't stay up all night and read it. But is it darker? It is darker.
Yeah. I always knew it was going to get darker. When people have enthusiastically said to me, "My 4-year-old listens," I think, "Oh, damn, I'm too young." There is a cutting point. I always knew it would get darker, and now they have.
And a scary ending.
I think it's the scariest ending so far. Yeah, I think it is. But it's not gratuitous. I didn't do it for fun. There's a reason. And when people have read it, I can discuss that fully and freely. But at the moment, people haven't read it, so I don't really want to say too much about that.
I remember when the first book came out, I think in terms of when there was a search for a publisher by Christopher Little, it was judged to be too long, even the first book.
Yes! Oops. Yeah. Yes, the consistent criticism, there were others, but the one constant in the refusals from publishers before Bloomsbury was 40 years ago this would have been standard length for a children's novel, but it's no longer. And that's Philosopher's Stone, and I think Goblet of Fire is probably 3 times the length.
636 pages here.
I didn't expect it to be that long. I knew it was going to be longer than the third book. I just knew because of the plot. I knew I'd need more words, but I didn't expect it to be quite that long. That was a bit of a shock to me as well.
So were you literally surprised when you saw it?
When I had the final printout, I just visualised the look on my editor's face as I handed it to her because she hadn't seen a word of it until that point, so I knew she was going to look fairly sick, and she did. Then she phoned me up and she said it was wonderful, so that was all right. But
was that a relief?
it's always a relief. Always a relief. I'm not, Well, I was really happy with it. I'm confident to the extent that I know what I want to do, and I knew that I'd done it. I read book 4 through, and I was scared of reading it through. I did. it had been a very long book. I missed my deadline on it. I read it through and I thought, if you hate it on this reading, what do we do? And I thought, well, I can't give it to them if I hate it. But I did like it. And so I was happy. But obviously, your editor is a very important person in the process.
How do you rate, I mean, it's probably an impossible question, but because you're not far distant enough, but in terms of, like I remember talking to David Kent and he liked the third book best. Given you just finished it, how do you rate it with its predecessors?
I think in some respects it is the best, honestly. And it was the hardest to write by far.
And they're getting harder to write.
No, the easiest to write is number 3. Number 1 was tough because of the circumstances in which I wrote it, but there were no expectations, so it was really all down to me. 2, I had a bit of a mental block with because I panicked after the success of 1. 3 was really a dream to write. I really enjoyed writing Out of Bad. 4 has been nightmarish. I feel like some woman was giving birth to 3 children and thought, piece of cake, and then on the 4th one really gets clogged in the labour and it was the worst labour by far. Biggest baby though.
You delivered this in February.
Mm-hmm.
Have you left Harry Potter alone for a few months? Take a break.
No comment. I'm boiled either way. If I said yes I have, then I feel that people will say, oh, she's giving up. And I feel if I say I haven't, then have people banging on my front door again.
That's good. I read David Heyman up yesterday, who I spoke to when he initially got the rights. I mean, he sounded a stressed man, to be honest. Where are we at with the movie?
Actually, we're doing really well with the movie. It'd be quite kind of nice to find a Harry, though. We all want a British Harry.
And are we in danger of not having a British Harry?
I don't know, honestly. I have no idea. I mean, I'm on the periphery of casting. I have no say whatsoever in casting, although I'm delighted to say that so far it looks like it's going to be on British cast.
They've seen, I think, thousands of boys. He said.
They've certainly had applications from thousands. I don't think they've seen thousands, but they've seen a lot.
And do you have any say in that?
No, not really. No. I don't really want to say, actually. I trust them. I trust them to find the right person, and I don't think there's a limit to how much input you want. The film, it's a different world. It's not my world. The film is not my world.
Hang on. You need to go to the top first.
Seriously? You're not using AI tools to move your career? Watch this. Disappear for 1 month to become the most dangerous person in the room. First, stop scrolling. Second, take a 1-minute quiz. Third, spend 15 minutes a day learning new skills. And the last, become a master of AI tools. In 1 week, you'll feel unstoppable. In 2 weeks, you'll have your strategy.
Get an atmospheric shot. It is better, because the American tours I do are punishing because it's a different hotel every night. It's mad. Constant flights all the time, and you're constantly exhausted. At least this, you stay put. It makes it easier. It really does.
You can repeat it, but how does this compare to the, I mean, I'm just actually curious. I'm not sure you like all this publicity thing, do you?
No, you know. Do I like it? It depends. I'm always slightly amused to see the word reclusive attached to my name in the papers, and I'm deeply amuses friends of mine. I'm not reclusive. What people definitely forget is I actually still am a lone parent. That wasn't a publicity stunt, and I want to bring up my daughter myself. And that means you spend time with your daughter. You don't rush off for weeks on end promoting books and doing interviews. That is the reason why. This is okay. We're sitting on a train, it's fun. We just saw loads of children. Some of it's not fun. When people come and bang on your front door, it's not fun. No.
And do they?
Mm-hmm. Not loads. No, I mean, compared to, I don't know. So, I've had nothing, but I've had enough not to enjoy it.
The question about your impact on Bloomsbury, You're aware of the impact you've had on Bloomsbury and the value of the company.
I think I have, yeah. But I've got to say, people can be people will be cynical. The fact is that Bloomsbury took me when a good few very well established publishers said, no way, it's totally uncommercial. And they took a risk, because someone there thought, no, I like it. And that was as simple as that. We think it's a good book, we'll take it. And they should get credit for that. I can't be cynical about Bloomsbury, because I would say, in fact, that after the birth of my daughter, the day I found out Bloomsbury had taken my book for publication was the happiest moment of my life. So I can be nothing but profoundly grateful to them. And they took a risk. It's very easy to look back now and think it was a dead cert. No one else thought it was a dead cert at all.
And the whole thing's changed. The word phenomenon is always attached to the whole Harry Potter thing. I mean, the Forbes magazine quoted you apparently earned 25 million quid last year.
Don't believe everything you read in the press. I'm not going to lie. I mean, by anyone's standards, and certainly by mine, I'm now rich. By anyone's standards. But trust me, trust my accountant. The figures you're seeing banded around, some of them are so far from the reality. It's actually funny.
And how does that affect you, or doesn't it? I mean, I know it makes you commit.
What, having money?
Yeah.
Single biggest change, and only people who have been extremely broke, I think, will really understand this. Single biggest change it makes in my life, I don't worry about money every day. Every day I'm people that I'm not worried about money, because for a good 3 years, nearly 4 years, I was on a daily basis very, very worried about money. So it's wonderful to be able to go to a shop and buy yourself a skirt or whatever it be.
Sorry.
Don't keep, sorry. I knew you were going to say that. Even as I saw you looking, I knew that's good. So wonderful though it may be to be able to afford things, that means nothing to me compared to the fact that I'm not worried anymore. I worry about different stuff now.
And there's also the kind of inevitability about at this level of success. The British attitude to success is not an American one.
No.
And that you're in for, Anthony Holden, who's in the Observer, for example. Anthony Buckingham, was interviewed for the Telegraph. You've seen all this, where people have had a go. A bit.
Well, I'll be honest with you. There are a lot of things that would upset me. That doesn't upset me. Number one, because I never expected anyone to like the book anyway. So the fact that there are people out there who don't like them is hand. How? I was never misguided enough, or arrogant enough, or naive enough to think that everyone would love my books, ever. Number one. Number two, I've been through a lot tougher than Anthony Holden saying he doesn't like my books. So I think I'm big enough to take it. Brave enough to take it.
Yeah. So, hey, we're done. Okay, thanks. Well, the address book on this question. Just needed.
The Carnegie yesterday. Yeah.
I looked at some of the old material capital that we used, which is doing your speech. What was it?
The Gwyneth Paltrow speech. All I can remember of that speech is the Gwyneth Paltrow reference, because I had nothing to do. Oh, look at each other. Well, Jesus Christ, who wants to be photographed as a Jerry Hall? Can you imagine? I'm 5'5". I come up to her crotch probably. It is any minute, yeah. Last bit, July. Sie sind auf der Suche nach Ihrer Traumimmobilie an der Ostsee. Hier sind 3 Gründe, warum das Kurhaus der Linden die perfekte Investition für Sie ist. Erstens, die Lage. Das Kurhaus der Linden befindet sich in erster Meereslinie auf der Insel Rügen. Stellen Sie sich vor, Sie wachen jeden Morgen mit einem atemberaubenden Blick auf die Ostsee auf. Zweitens, die exklusive Ausstattung. Jede Wohnung
An exclusive journey into the magical world of Harry Potter. Speaking in depth on television for the first time ever, his creator, J.K. Rowling, speaks to BBC One.
He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if today was known as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books written about Harry. Every child in our world will know his name.
When J.K. Rowling wrote these words in the opening pages of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, she never, in her wildest dreams, thought they'd come true. Harry Potter is one of the biggest publishing success the world has ever seen. Since 1997, more than 135 million copies have been sold in 48 different languages. Only the Bible has more translations. Every 30 seconds, someone somewhere in the world begins a Harry Potter story.
I think I would have been clinically insane to have expected what's happened. Who could have predicted this? No one knew. And I certainly didn't.
Just a few years ago, J.K. Rowling was broke and jobless. A single mother who spent her afternoons writing in Edinburgh coffee shops while her baby slept. Today, she's famous and rich, the most celebrated children's author in the world.
As it's witchcraft, wicked witchcraft.
She's created 4 international bestsellers. The first Harry Potter movie is a blockbuster success, and legions of fans are desperate for the next installment of the Boy Wizard's adventures. But it's J.K. Rowling's story that's the most amazing of all. Only now has she agreed to tell it in her own words.
As it's witchcraft.
A lot of rubbish has been written. Not necessarily malicious rubbish, but things get exaggerated and distorted. And I just thought maybe the moment has come just to say how it happened, truthfully, and then I can at least go easy to my bed and think, well, the truth's out there, and people can take it or leave it.
Harry's arrival on the doorstep of his Muggle relatives, the Dursleys, in the first book, is the start of an epic, magical journey. Harry grows up thinking he's just an ordinary boy, until he finds out that in the wizard world his name is legendary, and he's destined to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Then Harry's adventures really begin, as he and his classmates Hermione and Ron battle with the dark forces of magic. A story J.K. Rowling has meticulously planned to tell over 7 books, 1 for each school year. It was a journey that began back in 1990.
I was going by train from Manchester to London, sitting there thinking of nothing to do with writing, and the idea came out of nowhere. I could see Harry very clearly, this scrawny little boy, and it was the most physical rush of excitement. I'd never felt that excited about anything to do with writing. I'd never had an idea that gave me such a physical response. So I'm rummaging through this bag to try and find a pen or a pencil or anything. I didn't even have an eyeliner on me, so I just had to sit and think. And for 4 hours, because the train was delayed, I had all these ideas bubbling up through my head.
Harry was small and skinny, with brilliant green eyes and jet black hair that was always untidy. He wore round glasses, and on his forehead was a thin, lightning-shaped scar. It was this scar that made Harry so particularly unusual, even for a wizard. This scar was the only hint of Harry's very mysterious past, of the reason he had been left on the Dursleys' doorstep 11 years before.
I can't describe the excitement to someone who doesn't write books, except to say it was that incredibly elated feeling you get when you've just met someone with whom you might eventually fall in love. That was the kind of feeling I had getting off the train, as though I'd just met someone wonderful, and we were about to embark on this wonderful affair. That kind of elation, that lightheadedness and the excitement. And so I got back to my flat in Clapham Junction and started writing. And I've now been writing for 10 years, so it's been...
Du willst Closer werden, weißt aber nicht, wie du konkret starten sollst. Wer sich schon mit Closing auseinandergesetzt hat, der sieht bestimmt die ganzen Rolex-Träger da draußen mit den gemieteten Lambos. Und leider kann ich dir nicht versprechen, dass du in 2 Wochen deinen Job kündigen kannst und mit dem
writing. And I've been writing for 10 years, so it's been a good affair. For me, King's Cross is a very, very romantic place, and probably the most romantic station, purely because my parents met here. So that's always been part of my childhood folklore. My dad had just joined the Navy, my mum had just joined the Wrens. They were both travelling up to Arbroath in Scotland from London, and they met on the train pulling out of King's Cross. So I wanted Harry to go to Hogwarts by train. I just love trains, I'm a bit nerdy like that. And obviously, therefore, it had to be King's Cross. Excuse me, sir. Can you tell me where I might find platform 9 3/4?
9 3/4? Think you're being funny, do you?
Like a lot of them Harry Potter books, it was reality with a twist. I wanted to find another entrance to the magical world, but I didn't want a kind of time warp thing. I'd like the entrances to be places that you can only find if you have the knowledge. So anyone who ran at the barrier with enough confidence would be able to break through onto this platform between platform 9 and platform 10. Let's do it a bit of a run, if you're nervous. Good luck. I wrote platform 9 3/4 when I was living in Manchester, and I wrongly visualised the platforms, and I was actually thinking of Euston. So anyone who's actually been to the real platforms 9 and 10 in King's Cross will realise they don't bear a great resemblance to the platforms 9 and 10 as described in the book. So that's just me coming to it there. I was in Manchester, I couldn't check. It was 5 years from the train journey where I had the original idea to finishing the book. And during those 5 years, this mass of material was generated, some of which will never find its way into the book, will never need to be in the books. It's just stuff I need to know for my own pleasure, partly for my own pleasure and partly because I like reading a book where I have the sense that the author knows everything. They might not be telling me everything, but you have that confidence that the author really knows everything. Okay, so this is, to the untrained eye, might look like a pile of waste paper, but this is 10 years' work. As you can see, I file meticulously, and I know where every single piece of paper is. I've dragged out a few bits and pieces. So this is the name of everyone in Harry's year. And all these little symbols mean what house they're in, how magical they are, what their parentage is, because I needed this later for the Death Eaters and so on, and the various allegiances that would be set up within the school. I like this. This was 98, and this was me trying to find words for the Dementors. So I've always Latin words written all over the inside of my diary. I used to cover just about anything with writing, as you can see. This is my application for housing benefit in 28 Gardens Crescent, which is the first place I lived, obviously, when I was in Edinburgh. Treated with a complete lack of respect. Discarded first chapters of book 1. I reckon I must have got through alternative chapters of book 1. The reasons for which I discarded each of them were they all gave too much away. And in fact, if you put all those discarded first chapters together, almost the whole plot is explained. This is an old notebook in which I worked out, and again, I don't want you to come too close on this. That is the history of the Death Eaters. Where's my Portuguese diary gone? There it is. So this is a Portuguese diary, as you can see, not filled in, because I've never filled in a diary in my life. But it had paper in it to write on, so we have another draft, book 1, chapter 1. I drew a lot of pictures. I drew them for no one but me. I just wanted to know what characters look like. So anyway, that was Argus Filch. No prizes. Snape, obviously. That is Harry arriving in Privet Drive with Professor McGonagall and Hagrid and Dumbledore. That is a Gringotts card. Mira Verised. That's the Reese's. Professor Sprout. I like this one. I thought I'd lost this picture actually, because I was going to show it to Chris Columbus. And true to form, I only found it when it's no use and they'd already filmed that bit anyway. But this is how the entrance to Diagon Alley works in my imagination. Chris is going to murder me when he finds out I had it for all along, and he was asking me how it worked. But it was buried in the box.
Welcome, Harry, to Diagon Alley.
It felt as though I was carving a book out of these muscle notes. And that's in effect what I did. It was a question of condensing and editing and sculpting a book out of this mass of stuff that I had on Harry. And I thought that if it got published, I really thought it's a book for obsessives. It's a book for the kind of people who enjoy every little tiny detail about the world, because I have every little tiny detail about the world.
Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. First-year students will require 1. 3 sets of plain work robes. 2. 1 plain pointed hat, black for day wear. 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 4. 1 winter cloak, black, silver fastenings. Set books. The Standard Book of Spells by Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic by Matilda Bagshot. Magical Theory by Adalbert Waffle. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Philida Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment. 1 wand. 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2. 1 set glass or crystal files. 1 telescope. 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring an owl, or a cat, or a toad.
As J.K. Rowling continued to build Harry's world, her own fell apart. She arrived in Edinburgh in 1993 after a brief spell teaching English in Portugal. There, she married, had a baby, and then left her husband. She had no job, no money, and a tiny daughter to support.
That was the phase where the penniless single mother sort of tag to my name came along, which was true, but it wasn't enough that I was a penniless single mother. I had to write on napkins because I couldn't afford paper, and then we started straying into the realms of the ridiculous. Let's not exaggerate. Let's not pretend I had to write on napkins because I didn't. They started sort of adding little bits and pieces that just weren't necessary because the stark reality was bad enough. Haven't been back here since 1994 when I moved out. And I don't like being back here, which is no offence to the place, but I've kind of avoided this place since I moved out. Just in deference to the fact that it was a pretty unhappy 6 months. I did a lot of writing here. I would say it's here that really the first book became a book, as opposed to 3 chapters in a collection of notes. So we're going to go in then? Go. You couldn't really, objectively speaking, look around and say, well, you've made a success of your life. I was 28. I was living on benefit. I was living on about £70 a week. I had no work. And to suddenly be in a position where actually I couldn't support myself because obviously anyone who's trying to get state childcare will know that you'll be very lucky to get the kind of childcare that means you can work even part-time. So it was all a real shock to the system. Oh my God. This is so different. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. This is so different to how it was when I was here. This is nice. This is really nice. And I'm really glad. You just expect time to stand still when you've walked away from a place. And I should know better, but I have just been, every time I've come anywhere near this place or passed it in a bus or a taxi, I've imagined it exactly as it was when I lived here, and it's all been, I'm really delighted to live here. This is great actually, it's like an exorcism. Everything was just very, very, very dilapidated. Not always filthy, which wasn't the flat's fault, it was normally my fault, because people very often say to me, how did you do it? How did you raise a baby and write a book? And the answer is, I didn't do housework for 4 years. I'm not a superwoman. And living in Scotland, that was the answer. Memories of this time definitely created the Dementors.
Dementors are among the foulest creatures that walk this earth. They infest the darkest, filthiest places. They glory in decay and despair. They drain peace, hope, and happiness out of the air around them. Even muggles feel their presence, though they can't see them. Get too near a Dementor, and every good feeling, every happy memory will be sucked out of you.
They are kind of depression personified. I was depressed at that point. I still think they are the most frightening thing I've written. During the day, I was writing in cafes, as everyone famously knows. But could I just say, for the record, once and for all, because it's really irritating me, I did not write in cafes to escape my unheated flat, because I'm not stupid enough to rent an unheated flat in Edinburgh in midwinter. It had heating. I went out and wrote in cafes because the way to make Jessica fall asleep was to keep her moving in the pushchair. So I used to take her out, tire her out, put her in the pushchair, walk her along, the moment she fell asleep, into the nearest cafe at night. So this is Nicholson's, where I wrote huge parts of the book. This was a really great place to write, because there are so many tables around here that I didn't feel too guilty about taking a table up for too long. And that was my favourite table. I always wanted to try and get that one because it was out of the way, in the corner. It was just great to look up when you were writing and stop and think about things and be able to look out on the street, which was quite busy. They were pretty tolerant of me in here, partly because one of the owners was my brother-in-law. And I used to say to them, well, you know, if it's published, I'll try and get you loads of publicity. It was all just a big joke. No one ever dreamt for a moment that was going to happen. To muster the willpower to keep going with no promise of publication, obviously I must have really believed in the story, and I did. I really believed in it. But it was more a feeling of, I have to do right by this book. I have to give it my best shot. But at the same time, my realistic side was reminding me that a completely unknown author always has a struggle to get published. And who knew? Just because I thought it was so great, was no guarantee that anyone else would like it.
J.K. Rowling sent off her manuscript and got herself a literary agent, only to find that publishing houses threw Harry on the reject pile.
At the very beginning, we were very excited about it in the agency, but it was a very difficult book to sell. And then quite a large number of publishers turned it down. It was too long. It dealt with going away to school, which is something that was regarded as being not politically correct. Well, of course, everybody now denies turning it down and want to distance themselves from this terrible, terrible error.
Is it nice to name names? You're nodding, but I don't think it's very nice to name names.
It was all the major publishers we know. Among them, Puffin and Collins, for sure. It's like turning down the Beatles, isn't it? The very first question she asked me was, how do you feel about sequels? And she told me the entire story of Harry Potter, all through the entire series. I realised, of course, that she knew exactly about this world and where it was going and who it was going to include, how the character would develop. And of course, it was fascinating because this doesn't normally happen. Children's book characters don't grow up in real time normally. You know, they're locked in the time they are, and the sequels are endless reruns of the same kind of adventures. But to have a character developing in real time as his age developed was a really interesting idea. I gave Jo one memorable piece of advice. After our first lunch together, we were sitting down, and I said, the important thing, Jo, is for you to
Keep your real job. He said, Barry said, and Christopher, my agent, also said to me,
children's authors, you really don't make any money.
They both of them were at pains to say to me, you know, we really like the book, but, you know, it's not like commercial.
Bloomsbury Publishing acquired what would become the biggest phenomenon in modern literature for just £2,500.
That was second to the birth of my daughter, the best moment of my life. Christopher phoned me up on a Friday afternoon, and he said it so matter-of-factly.
Your speech is certainly for at least the period of time it takes to build up enough steam for a big screen, I think.
And he said, are you all right? Are you still there? And I said, well, it's just that my only lifetime ambition has just been fulfilled, and I was the best.
If you want to pass your challenge and get funded as soon as possible, listen up. We will pass your challenge for you, help you get funded, then completely automate the process so that it can stand the test of time. You see, we specialize in passing people's challenges and helping them get funded, even if they've failed many times before or have no prior training experience.
Nothing since has come anywhere close to the fact that I was actually going to be in print. It was going to be an actual book in bookshop. The best moment, oh my God. I went to Waterstones on Princess Street in Edinburgh, and there I was, between Ransom and someone else. You know, I was just there on the art shelf, just like any other author. It was incredible. And I had this urge to sneak on off and sign it and put it back on. But I thought, you know, someone would tell me off for graffitiing the books. And I didn't have a credit card or anything at that point. You see, these practical things, so I had no proof I was me. So I couldn't think how I would explain it away, so I didn't.
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone tells of Harry's introduction to the magical world. Not only is he a wizard, but a famous one at that. He's renowned as the miraculous survivor of a brutal attack by the evil wizard Voldemort, who murdered his parents. Through his adventures at Hogwarts, he begins to find out the mysteries of his past.
The orphan is an excellent protagonist for any story because they're free and yet they're bereft. They're bereft of what gives a child most of the sense of who he or she is, where they come from, where they belong. So they're cut adrift in some strange way. They have this great need, because we all need to know where we come from, and we need to find where we will eventually belong.
Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you?
Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin.
Not Slytherin, eh?
When he first arrives at school, he's totally unsure. He has the feelings we all have, as adults as well, when you enter a new place and you don't know what's going on, but greatly exaggerated, obviously, by the fact that he is set apart even there by his fame and his ancestry, and this curious quirk that meant that he survived this, what should have been a fatal attack. He's every boy, but with a twist.
J.K. Rowling's mixture of the everyday and the magical, the matter-of-fact and the mystical, permeates her books.
I think that the world of Hogwarts, or my magical world, my community of wizards, it's like the real world in a very distorted mirror. We're not going off to a different planet. We're not going through time warps. It is a fantastic world that has to live shoulder to shoulder with the real world.
I think what I liked the first about Harry Potter was that mix of, I wouldn't say fantasy, because I always think that is a dirty word, and fantasy doesn't really work unless it's grounded in reality. It's the reality that appeals to me in a sense. What's woven into them is a true history of the English folkloric tradition of magic. She hasn't made up a magic world which is simply a great wish list, a Disney-esque fantasy of what if you have a dream it's going to come true. Because Harry Potter doesn't present a world like that. It's connected and it comes out of the whole fabric of English history and folkloric mythology. And I'm not in any way trying to push you into a high literary genre that you yourself, I'm sure, would claim to belong to. It's merely that that's why it works, because things don't work if they're a result of a feeble-minded fantasy.
Magic is perennially fascinating. There will always be books about magic because it's deeply, deeply...
And fantasy doesn't really work unless it's grounded in reality, and it's the reality.
Planet. We're not going through time warps. It is a fantastic world that has to shoulder to shoulder with the real world.
I think what I liked the first about Harry Potter was that mix of, I wouldn't say fantasy, because I always think that is a dirty word, and fantasy doesn't really work unless it's grounded in reality, and it's the reality that appeals to me in a sense. What's woven into them is a true history of the English folkloric tradition of magic. She hasn't made up a magic world which is simply a great wish list, a Disney-esque fantasy of what if you have a dream it's going to come true. Because Harry Potter doesn't present a world like that. It's connected and it comes out of the whole fabric of English history and folkloric mythology. And I'm not in any way trying to push you into a high literary genre
that has to live shoulder to shoulder with the real world.
I think what I liked the first about Harry Potter was that mix of, I wouldn't say fantasy, because I always think that is a dirty word, and fantasy doesn't really work unless it's grounded in reality. It's the reality that appeals to me in a sense. What's the English folkloric tradition of magic? She hasn't made up a magic world which is simply a great wish list, a Disney-esque fantasy of what if you have a dream it's going to come true. Because Harry Potter doesn't present a world like that. It's connected and it comes out of the whole fabric of English history and folkloric mythology. And I'm not in any way trying to push you into a high literary genre that you yourself, I'm sure, would claim to belong to. It's merely that that's why it works, because things don't work if they're a result of a feeble-minded fantasy.
Magic is perennially fascinating. There will always be books about magic because it's deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained in all of us. In all societies, the world over, magic came first. And we still, sophisticated as we think ourselves now, I think the appeal of the idea that I can do something that will influence this large, scary environment in which I have to exist. The dream of being able to become a wizard and control the environment is still enormous for adults as well as children.
You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making, he began. He spoke in barely more than a whisper, but a word. Like Professor McGonagall, Snape had the gift of keeping a class silent without effort. As there is little foolish bond-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, ensnaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stop a death.
I don't believe in witchcraft, though I've lost count of the number of times I've been told I'm practicing witch. 95% at least of the magic in the books is entirely invented by me. And I've used things from folklore, and I've used bits of what people used to believe worked magically just to add a certain flavour, and but I've always twisted them to suit my own ends. I mean, I've taken liberties with folklore to suit my plot. Witches and wizards are a huge part of children's literature. It'll never go away. I don't think it'll ever go away. 100 years, 200 years' time, there'll be another kind of wizard story.
By 1997, J.K. Rowling had moved on to the second book in the series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Book 1 was doing well, but nowhere near its popularity today, and J.K. Rowling was making her living as a teacher. Then something happened that would change her world forever. Harry cast a spell across the Atlantic, and American publishers got caught up in a bidding war for the book.
My boss would say, okay, do you love it? I'd say, yes, I love it. Okay, stay in the auction. Do you love it this many dollars? Yeah. I kept saying yes. I just was getting more and more nervous. Because at the end of the day, this is more money than I had ever paid any author as an advance, let alone an advance for a first novel. It was unprecedented. She said, do you love it $105,000? And I said, yes. She said, well, go ahead and make that offer, and that was it.
The deal with Scholastic meant that at last J.K. Rowling could fulfill her lifelong ambition to become a full-time writer.
As soon as I knew that people wrote books, they didn't just arrive, I don't know, out of nowhere, like plants. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I can't ever remember not wanting to be a writer. It's a bit mysterious to me as well, but and yet it isn't mysterious to me. You see, I can't honestly understand why you don't want to be a writer. I can't understand why the whole world doesn't want to be a writer. What's better than it? Unless you can really remember what it felt like to be a child, you've really got no business writing for children. Even if people hate the book, I qualify on another count, then I definitely qualify on that one because I remember so vividly that age.
J.K. Rowling's memories of her childhood have had a big influence on her writing. She was born in 1965 in Chipping, Sudbury, and grew up near Bristol with her parents Anne and Peter and a younger sister Di. She admits to being bookish and bossy as a child, not unlike one of Harry's best friends.
Wingardium Leviosa! Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. You do believe you're so clever.
When I started to write Hermione, when I actually got hold of a pen, she came incredibly easily. Largely because she's me.
Come on. Wingardium Leviosa.
I was swotty, And I had that, sense of insecurity underneath, trying to compensate for that by getting everything right all the time. And like Hermione, I projected a false confidence, which I know was very irritating to people at times, but underneath it all, I felt completely and utterly inadequate, which is why I completely understand Hermione.
Even as a young child, J.K. Rowling loved to write, completing her first book at the age of 6.
The first finished book I did was a book called Rabbit, about a rabbit called Rabbit. Revealing the imaginative approach to names that has stood me in such good stead ever since. And I wrote the rabbit stories for ages to the point where a series of books about Rabbit, which were very dull, illustrated by the author. The one book I could say that specifically influenced my work was The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goodge. She always listed the exact food they were eating. So wherever you were in the book, whenever they had a meal, you knew exactly what was in the sandwiches. And I just remember finding that so satisfying as a child.
There were shelves upon shelves of the most succulent-looking sweets imaginable. Creamy chunks of nougat, shimmering pink squares of coconut ice, fat, honey-coloured toffees, hundreds of different kinds of chocolate in neat rows. There was a large barrel of every flavour beans, and another of fizzing whiz-bees, the levitating sherbet balls that Ron had mentioned.
As I moved into my teens, I was into very dramatic, gritty realism, entirely influenced by Barry Hines and Kes. Unfortunately, I didn't live in a northern town. My urban landscape wasn't very developed because I lived in Chepstow, in the middle of a lot of fields, and it's quite hard to be a disaffected urban youth in the middle of a muddy field. So this is a cottage, obviously, where I lived from the age of 9. My bedroom's furthest on the right, and I spent an awful lot of time in that bedroom writing. I have very happy memories of this place. It's quite emotional being back here, actually, because I've only once been, because my dad left this house shortly after my mum died. So I've only once been back here since my mum died. I remember hanging out of my bedroom window, smoking behind the curtains late at night. My father will not be happy to hear that. I wasn't very clever about that either, because I used to leave the cigarette ends were, below the window.
All right, so thanks y'all for watching. That was an interesting experiment. Just ended up listening to J.K. Rowling interviews while playing Block Blast for the last hour 15 or so, and I think I'm gonna call it here. So probably nobody's ever gonna hear these words, but it was an interesting experiment. So if you're somehow hearing this, much peace, much love. I love you. Take it easy, fam. Peace.